There's no secret to people are going to work with who they want to work with. It's not just the technology, it's the team.
Welcome to the inaugural episode. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined here by Joshua Schur and my lingering cough. I got sick about 8 days ago and it's still here. Let's get into it. Joshua, now you've been here for
3 months.
We've known each other a little bit over a year, maybe 2 at this point. What are you excited about lately?
Chief among what I'm excited about is getting back out on the circuit. We kind of have the Super Bowl coming up, which is the IFA convention. So after learning a ton about what we do, how we do it, who we're doing it for, why we do it, what drives us, it's going to be pretty cool to get out there between the technology and the relationship standpoint.
And what about personally?
Personally, oh man. Well, I'm a crazy guy. In my old age, I decided to try out some new things. So I have a bachelor party and a wedding coming up. Tying the knot in April, and you're going to get whiplash as I say this, but the bachelor party, I am going straight from Vegas and IFA on a red eye to my bachelor party, which is either the greatest or the worst idea in the universe.
Bro, you don't give a shit. This guy loves to party. Yeah, so just being real for a second, right? Obviously, we're websites. You know the whole digital marketing ecosystem for franchise in general, outside of just websites. What's one thing that surprised you about websites now that you've been in it a little bit more than maybe as a peripheral before?
What surprised me the most is how resistant some brands are to unlearn what they think they know and move towards an architecture and a future that is better for the network. It's almost like, you know, how some people avoid going to the doctor. Like, I feel fine enough. I don't need to go now. It's fine. I'm fine. And if you wait too long to get checked up, something might pop up. So to me, that has pretty much been the biggest surprise, to understand certain companies' website architecture offerings and others that, to be completely honest, are cheaper, but are archaic in nature.
You've been involved with websites for a decade at this point. And then the level that, let's say, we're executing it at in terms of what we do for, let's say, a franchise brand, are you like, yeah, duh? Or you were shocked? Or where were you at in terms of like, wow, I didn't know it was actually that technically complex?
I'm not completely into the weeds in sort of absorbing and going through all the technical complexities when it comes to an integration, build, and a launch. But if I answer your question in the manner that I think you're throwing out at, I think it comes down to a duh, because at the end of the day, if you set things up to be a well-oiled machine, it's something that you don't have to worry about. It's not set it or forget it. Nothing in digital is. Nothing in business is truly set it or forget it. And you're able to be an absentee owner, an absentee president, or whatnot. You need to keep an eye on everything. You got to make sure that you're pumping the content machine, keeping things fresh. But in terms of the duh, no shit, it's surprising to me that everyone just doesn't go towards the let me just get what I pay for, if that makes sense.
In terms of how you see what it is that we're delivering, what a franchise brand expects, how are you seeing the pricing affecting the conversation?
Like everything else, there is a cost to both corporate and the franchisee when consuming a technology solution for the most part. It's very rare that corporate's going to take the position of, yeah, we'll take this on. We have the money in this kitty or that bucket to cover it. Something is passed through. In a website case, it's normally the hosting and management piece per each location that's live and utilizing the website. Where I've seen some sticker shock and pricing concern is really on that location side of, how are my franchisees going to pay for this in addition to everything else, right? They're trying to deliver a technology stack that gives them the greatest possibility of success. So how do you balance all of that? That's what I've seen.
Sort of in the same vein, but not really. What's something that somebody in franchise, either related to websites or not, doesn't really matter, has said that's made you laugh recently?
What could be publicly aired at this point? Look, to me in franchising, the funniest thing right now is the notion of strategic partnerships and referral agreements and how they're run. Sometimes you have a dedicated resource at a company with somebody who's doing that. And at the end of the day, have you ever really heard of any system or network or company in our industry that just has such a great program that has everyone so excited that everyone can't wait to scratch each other's back, that's involved in this supposedly mutual and bi-directional partnership, right? Like everyone's always waiting for, well, what are you going to give me? And the other one's like, oh, what have you given me? And I don't know, to me, it's just funny because I see and hear about all of these companies and we get the phone calls of, hey, we would love to be involved with you. You have all these great clients. And if you ever get someone that's interested in XYZ, it's never something that's enticing enough, I don't think, on either end to where you hear about like this great functional strategic partnership, if that makes any sense.
So what makes you laugh?
That everyone thinks that everyone is going to willingly work for free and drop all of the things that they have on their plate to help someone else out. I find it funny because if everyone were to take the idea of where they want to go and really dumb it down to the point to say, if someone came to me and offered me this, how interested would I be, right? I think a lot of people don't abide by the whole do unto others as you'd want done unto you.
That's funny.
I mean, it's business funny. Everything else is very gray area to air. We have to wait until episode 4.
Yeah.
Get canceled.
Is there something new that you've learned by being even here on this side of the fence and mainly websites?
What I've learned, and again, like it's always tough to answer questions like this, right? Because when the two of us work together, it's almost like he's full of shit or it's like a brown-nosing type of thing. But we really are a client-first company. You and I will talk about growth initiatives and whatnot. And as recent as today, it's like, okay, what's the most important thing to us as we're conceptualizing a solution and go to market strategy and everything else? You said it and I agree with it. I'm a client first person. Brand's got to be happy. Make the brand happy. It's that simple. So we are really focused on being a client first company and everything else will kind of figure itself out, right? We're not starting every, quarterly meeting, every monthly meeting, every weekly meeting with, what's the exit plan? What's our valuation? How are we going to get our money and run? It's more over, hey, here's our brand portfolio. Is there anything that we need to keep an eye on? Is everyone happy? What are we going to do? We're going to see everyone soon. What's so-and-so up to? We get into the personal level of everything.
What do you think about all the RFPs flying around in franchise?
It's not realistic, but it would be fantastic if all companies had a chance to put their hat in the ring. We're involved in a bunch of RFPs as we speak, and rightfully so. And then you and I will probably hear something when we're at one of the upcoming shows where, oh, we just ran an RFP, and we'll look at each other like, well, why weren't we involved in that? And it comes back to, does everyone know who we are? And I don't mean me and you. They'll see our faces. But when everyone sees each other's faces in franchise, like the first thing that they do, especially if they know each other. Well, if they don't know each other, whether they know each other, the eyes go right to the badge, for better or worse, right? And when people know each other in our industry, the eyes go to the badge because it's a, where are you now? Where are you now? Everyone shifts around so much, right? With these RFPs, does everyone know who we are? Because we are at the forefront in terms of being a website technology provider. How do RFPs run that we didn't have a chance to compete in? I'm not saying that everyone that we compete in, we're going to automatically advance to a final. We may, for whatever reason, lose in the first round. We do our presentation. Me and you are not for everyone personality wise. And even though they're analyzing, a solution for its technology capabilities, there's no secret to people are going to work with who they want to work with. It's not just the technology, it's the team. RFPs, they're out there.
I have one question, one statement. I'll start with the question. Do you think that the reason why there's a lot of RFPs in franchises purely as like a procedural process, appeasement around diligence of, we didn't just pick a favorite, we actually were analyzing who's in the field and then we came up with the best?
I believe it's a checks and balances. Set of circumstances, right? A CMO, a VP of marketing, whomever, if we're going to be talking about websites as the example, says, hey, look, we're having some challenges. We're outdated. We need to be future-proofed. Any one of several reasons that gets a brand into shopping mode, into purchasing mode.
Do you think that an RFP speeds up decision-making or slows it down?
Great question. If it's a brand that is used to going through the RFP process, I believe it speeds it up. Because otherwise, it's like me and you walking through an outdoor mall. If we want to buy a particular piece of furniture, we go into a Pottery Barn, we look at everything, then we go into, and we love it. Then we cross the street, we go into West Elm, we see 2 other mirrors or tables that we love. Then we go into these mom and pop places, and it's like, oh, this costs a little more, but it's so unique and it's so different and we can stand out. And then at the end of the day, we're like, wait, what did we look at? What are our notes? And then we have to go back, and then we're talking each individual thing. So each individual company. So an RFP, it really enables everyone to go through the same level of questioning, the same process, and develop a scorecard. And, you know, from a relationship standpoint and from an emotional standpoint, developing that scorecard, at the end of the day, a number could speak. And for whatever reason, you know, somebody won 93 to 92. And it becomes very easy for a CEO to look at the CMO and say, hey, look, I know you have a long-standing relationship with the incumbent, but we went through this process. So-and-so is running it. It could be procurement. It could be an outside consultant, whoever, whatnot. We are going to go with the numbers.
That's a good take. The end of last quarter and now this quarter, I'm obsessed with that idea of like the emerging / mid-market, because I think like the brands that have the luxury or that have had enough growth, that have the IT director, obviously you see we win the deals that are in some cases more sophisticated or complex, even though they're really not. But even though it's been laid out in a way that's like, we're actually trying to solve 4 things versus just our website's slow, we win those. But like the ones that are that mid-market emerging, it's like, I keep trying to think like, who are we really selling to? And again, there's a lot of CMO titles in there. I don't think they have the authority. They have the title. They don't have the authority to make the decision. They might run an RFP process. Ultimately, the decision is still on the founder, who's going to decide after someone's done all that homework. And I've seen it now. Definitely not 10 times, probably closer to 5 times last year, where a whole RFP only for the CMO to basically be, you know, let go shortly after the whole RFP process. And I don't think that necessarily the CMO is at all wrong. The issue is there's this other decision maker who is obviously still running the business based on essentially some version of the bank account, which is, again, I know that person. That's me. I did that for 16 years. I did that shit. I just haven't had to do it for the last 2-3 years. And so it's just like, I don't know, like, I just feel like part of our job has got to make it, I keep going back to just buying a fucking car, like move. I don't know. There's something in there. I don't know what it is.
But are you just buying a car, right? And buying a car for most people is one of the biggest purchase decisions that they could be making in their lifetime, right? House, car.
Until you buy an iPhone or until you buy a Tesla. Once you buy an iPhone, and again, unless you're one of the weird Android people, but nonetheless, once you buy an iPhone and once you buy a Tesla, you just don't see another way after that, right? And at the end of the day, like that's what I sort of want for DevHub is once you buy a DevHub website, you get why it's a DevHub website and not what you've been doing for the last 10 fucking years, right? I mean, and so it's like, oh, that's the difference. You know, ultimately, it's a website though, right? Ultimately, it's just a car. But it's like once you buy into it, you get it. You're not, I mean, if you're an iPhone user, the chances you're going to switch to an Android are like almost not going to happen at this point. Again, who knows what happens in the future? Somebody else comes up with something. Once you buy a Tesla, personally, I think like, and again, once you've bought a Tesla after you've owned the sports car, the SUV, the other thing, where you're just like, fuck, I just like, it's not worth the gas. It's not worth the thing. Fuck it. I'm going to go electric. You buy the Tesla, you're like, and you do it off of your phone. And you're like, I just bought a car off my phone. I don't have to talk to the dealership. I didn't have to do anything. My insurance is included. I'm driving the car. I didn't have to pay for gas this week. Oh, I get it. Same thing with DevHub, right? You said it. This all came from your first week here, second week, whenever we saw each other, which was, you know, we have to reshape how people buy essentially a website, what they think that they know. And it's, again, like one of the rebuttals, you know, one of the deals we did not win last year. The founder was like, I've been doing websites for 10 years. I've never heard of anyone charging a license fee, right? And it's like, well, why do you think you keep switching your website every fucking 2 years then? Because it's old. It's never old with DevHub.
Yeah, but you could say to that person, in the same vein, I know somebody who, like has been eating pizza their whole life and decided to open up their own pizza store. And why would they look into franchise? Because they never would have thought to pay a licensing fee. But yet this person, potentially is going through a lot of trouble trying to start and operate their own business that isn't a turnkey model. It's the same thing. That's how I would have responded to that person.
There was nothing I said it all. And it was just like, no, I know better than you. That happened again. That also happened at that other conference, whichever one it was, Springboard. I'm not going to say who, but like the guy was like, I spent $60,000 to rebrand all my stuff. And I'm like, cool. He's like, I'm going to do my website. And I was like, cool. And I think I bullshitted him some price. He was willing to pay more for a brand redesign than the website. The thing that's actually going to deliver the leads, the things that the AI models will be reading, you're going to pay less than a graphic. You rather sacrifice delivering on the promise to the customer and pay more for a design. And was just like, this fucking, and again, it's like, it's some of that. But again, I sympathize with them because I was that guy. I would have never let anyone sell DevHub besides me. I would have never let anybody fucking, do our marketing, put out our messaging. And then you get to a place where you do. That's why we win the bigger deals, because they have that team, that leadership. And I think it's a leadership thing. The mid-market and emerging, the leadership is still onesie, twosie people, aka Daniel, myself, them, and somebody else. And they don't have like the true team to like run the play. They're still doing a lot. And to give up a chunk of money always feels like it's really hard for them because they know how hard it was to earn each dollar.
But it goes beyond the money. So let's stay there, because that like seamlessly transitions us into something that's very important to talk about, which is these mid-market or emerging franchise systems. What is their number one priority? It's not a trick question. What's their number one priority? Whether it's right or wrong, what are they trying to do, Mark? All of their meetings, all of their everything, all of their efforts, what are they trying to do? It's one word.
Grow.
That's it. Grow.
Right.
They want to sell. They want to sell. They want to grow. They want to sell. They want to grow. Right. From an investment standpoint, a focus standpoint, that's where they are. They want to grow. And if that's where their head's at, chances are they are not sitting back and saying, I want to, and I have the time to make sure I am dealing with and working with the best of the best so that everyone I already have stood up, so that my entire footprint is like a well-oiled machine and everything is talking to each other and nothing can be, better improved. They're more like, I only have X amount of time. I need to sell, 30 more units this year. I know what it's going to take for that. I have to run all over the place. I have to also make sure that, my franchisees that like represent, a leg of this tripod, doesn't completely implode and the whole thing falls down, right? So where does that lead them? That leads them to potentially cost cutting. Number one. And number two, they want to consolidate vendors so that from a relationship standpoint, from a billing standpoint, right? Like you talk about small teams. Some of these CEOs are like the brand accountant also. They don't want to deal with multiple companies owning paper. Meanwhile, like sometimes that's best in class. So at the end of the day, what makes us very different from everybody else out there that is an agency is we do one thing. We do one thing, and we happen to do it really, really, really well. And those aren't my words. Those are the people's words who I spoke to that are your clients before I decided to jump on. At the end of the day, this also comes down to the focus is growth. And when the focus is growth, sometimes it's not like a best-in-class strategic partnerships on the technology side servicing the network, because they don't have time to deal with multiple people. Or they don't think they have the time. They don't think said time is justified. And then on top of it, you're layering in potentially an additional cost. You and I can give analogies until the cows come home, but like it's the same thing as like, I would rather buy 2 really expensive articles of clothing than buy 20 cool things that are on sale that may not even fit my body right at like Woodbury Commons outlet.
Yeah, same page. Sort of in the same vein, but obviously not at all. In franchise, we see like a lot of fractional people.
Mm-hmm.
Right, even fractional from the friend dev side to the marketing side to the ops side. And this is a loaded question, so I get it. But still, if you had to give like the low, medium, high answer,
okay,
does it work?
Bring on a fractional person?
Right.
For a brand, bringing on a fractional officer definitely works, unless you're bringing on the wrong fractional officer.
I think that should stay.
It depends. What if it's a perfect marriage? What if you bring on someone fractionally and it's the right person to lead whatever it is that you have them leading? Why would you let that person walk out the door? And to me, there's only three reasons. Number one, you want them there for a short period of time because from a culture standpoint, they can get shit done, but they're not the right fit. You don't know if you want that type of personality in your company. Number two, and this isn't in order of importance. Number two, you can't afford that person full time. That is a painful truth. A lot of fractionals, I do fractional work. I've done fractional work. When someone like me comes in, it's because they could afford me for X amount of time at obviously a not full-time rate. And the passion needs to be aligned on both sides. If someone's not passionate about what they're doing, it will speak in the results. The fractional person has to really believe in the brand and give their stamp of approval behind that brand. Supplier, franchise, whatever it is, that passion, that belief needs to be there.
If the fractional is doing their job or does their job well, and again, if the one word is growth, at a certain point, like you're going to outgrow the person. And in some cases, unless it's like to fix systems, it's like it almost seems like the engagement should be like never more than like a year. Because in theory, that person should be almost hiring their replacement because they were able to grow in the right way. We're talking about fractional, like we're talking about fractional at the senior levels, C-suite.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Like we're talking about fractional, I'm talking about like they're in the C-suite with the founders typically at that level. They should be almost always working to hire themselves, get themselves out of that job. Not be like, I'm going to milk this thing. It's like, it's just not in the best interest of the brand, right? Or no? I'm asking.
I mean, if we're talking about that fractional person being a growth officer, I wouldn't disagree what you're saying, but there's use cases, right?
Give me one.
Okay, so I'm a fractional officer. I'm brought in to help this new emerging franchise, grow at super speed rate, assuming that they're responsibly franchising, right? What's going to turn me on to that? What's going to turn me on as the person that's coming in and selling it isn't just the commission that I make and the reputation that I can build, but it's clearly there's an exit plan. If we get to, once we get to 250 units, whatever it is, we're going to sell for X. And of that X, you have equity, you have warrants, depending on your performance, you're going to get paid out Y. Great. That's it. That's the time frame. And that's going to be more than 3 months. That's going to be more than 6 months. It's going to be the traditional, it's going to be whatever the established sales cycle is times however many units we're looking to grow over however many units we are able to successfully launch, right? Like the worst thing these franchise systems can do is they're at an early stage. They don't have a fully built out ops team. And now all of a sudden, like you have a rock star developer who sold the dream. But realistically, there is not the infrastructure to launch 60 units that he or she may have just sold. If we're talking about a growth fractional officer, that person's good at what they do and they're passionate about the brand and everyone's on the same page. I think that could be a longer engagement than you're thinking, 6 months to a year, because you have to take the sales cycle into play. If you're talking about a fractional CMO, okay, well, there's go-to-market strategy, and there should be X amount of time where you develop, implement, and execute on said strategy. And it works or it doesn't work. But either way, that person has run their course and done their job.
As I get a little bit more either calloused or experience or whatever you want to call it, like everything is measurable to some degree. There's definitely a human element. I've not been able to strip that off of my brain, but like the more and more I learn about business, the more and more I realize it's all measurable. And the gut feel and it's like, okay, if our goal is to be at blank units or our goal is to be at this much revenue or generate this many leads, like it's all measurable. Like it's like either it happens or it doesn't happen. And again, with like fractional, some of the ones that I've seen, it always feels like the goals are like non-specific, right? I'm going to help fix this process. I'm going to clean this thing up. I'm going to make sure that we pick the right vendor. But what is ultimately, how is that really aligning? That can take forever. Is it going to take a year?
But doesn't that fall back on the brand? Like the brand should know what they are bringing the fractional officer in for. And if the fractional officer is like speaking word salad or presenting, an execution plan that's word salad without any measurable goal, then that's on the brand if they're paying somebody to do potentially X or potentially Y instead of we need to get to Z. I think that falls back on the brand. We need to find somebody that could do this. We are going to bring in somebody that can do that, but they will present a plan on how they're going to do it. And then ultimately they're given a time frame of how to execute. And that time frame between the officer and the brand and the team, that can change based upon however many things may or may not be going on through that process.
Let me ask you this. If we were sitting here a year from now, from this episode, right?
Yeah.
What would I have had to do for you to feel that DevHub was a great decision for you? On the record.
You personally?
Yeah, or the company, or whatever you want to say.
Fully transparent. We all have a lifestyle we live and bills we have to pay. So monetarily, it's got to make sense. At the end of the day, if it's, this is your company, this is your baby, and it's a good looking baby, but it's yours. It's not mine. And if I'm not sitting in something with equity, then, to me, has the past year monetarily been worth it, because what I'm doing and what everyone does that works in actuality is they are selling their time. They're selling their time. So what do I believe a year of my professional life is worth? Ultimately and unfortunately, that all comes down to a number. But it's not the only thing. The next thing is, how has the experience from a relationship standpoint and a growth standpoint shaped out? Am I doing work that's rewarding and that's going to empower me into the next thing that I do, whether it's helping another brand or whether it's starting my own brand? Or have I just been doing the same things or some version of the same things that I've been doing before? And then obviously, what relationships have I made along the way? What validity have I put behind my name as a trusted advisor? How have I helped the validity of the company I'm working for in terms of their good name? That, to me, a year from now, it's how and where has Joshua Shore grown? And does he still look at his beautiful fiance for just looks and personality, or thanking God she's got a great job also?
Two last questions. Number one, do you feel lucky?
I did before when I was betting on Wild Card Weekend. We're all very lucky. We're here today. The one thing that I tell you, because you, like me, have no mental filter, and we'll talk about something and maybe we're both stressed out about it, and you'll say, we're all going to die tomorrow or something. Like, who cares about this, right? So not to get nostalgic or spiritual, but like every day we wake up, we're lucky. I don't understand why some people aren't here, tomorrow that we're here today. I don't get how any of that works.
I always look at life as like a Sith, like one of those things that you like powder, like flour, when someone's baking, and it's like, we don't know. We don't know. Like, it's like either you're gonna get stuck up here and you get to keep going, or you fall through.
Right.
And it's like, again, like, yeah, who gets touched by an angel? I mean, I don't know. And then I guess the last question, what do we actually name this podcast?
DevBros.
I'll roll with it.
I don't know. I could think of other things. Look, this first episode we're doing here, I don't know how it gets cut or whatnot, but ultimately, my vision behind this is we are two different but very entertaining personalities, and there's only so much talk about websites that people wants to hear. And, even though that is what we are working on in life, our lives, our passions and everything goes just so far beyond that. And that's what the people care about, right? And at the end of the day, if they need our help and they know who we are, like, we're faces that are out there and recognizable in our industry, but not everyone knows who we are, and definitely not everybody knows, what we do, what the company does, anything else. So where I'm getting at with this is, I would love for this to get like Seinfeld-esque and just cover topics that people find entertaining, engaging, hilarious, and then bring our franchise fam in and talk about nothing, but talk about everything.
I think a lot of it will happen as the year progresses.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The conferences, what's what, who's what, I mean, I don't mean what I'm about to say at all, right? But like, even who breaks bones skiing.
Oh God.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Seems like every year it does.
Yeah, there are
every year someone gets injured. I'm just like, Oh, yeah, I really want to go skiing. Jesus Christ. All right, cool. Josh, let's wrap it. And then, yeah, that was the first episode. Anything you want to close it with?
No, until the next one. Well done. I hope you enjoy my White Man Can't Jump Hat, one of my favorite movies. What's your favorite? Give me your top 3 movies. That's what I want to close with.
Mine are all going to be the most basic: Godfather, Interstellar, and maybe Forrest Gump.
Interstellar is a very interesting one. I don't know that most people would say that. I don't know if I put it in my top 3, but I'll throw one at you where you'll be like, oh shit.
Oh, let me say, just real quick. After I watched Interstellar, I didn't believe in aliens anymore.
Okay. I got one for you. Vanilla Sky.
I could watched it so many times, I still don't get what it's about.
I think that's one of the best movies ever made.
It's so interesting because I still don't know what the hell is it about.